Thank you, everybody. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you for asking me. Curlews. Ground nesting birds are really, really important because ground nesting birds nest on the ground. And on the ground is where everything happens. It's on the ground that we build our houses and do our leisure and farm, and it's what we walk over. It's where we put our renewable energy. So what happens on the ground is vital. Monitoring and understanding the creatures that live on the ground tells us the big picture about the health of the planet, not just here, but right across the world. So ground nesting birds like the curlew are shouting to us, are singing to us about what's happening to the planet. So why I find them so interesting, because they find themselves unwittingly right in the middle of the biggest conservation challenges the world faces. So through the eyes of a curlew, if you like, we can have a look at these massive conservation challenges like forestry, like how we farm the land, like climate change, like how we're going to make development sustainable, if that's even possible. Curlews are the sort of in the middle of a boxing ring, being attacked on all sides, I would put it, in many ways. And so to look at the world through their eyes helps us to focus on what we need to do. So climate change is one of the major factors, as James has just pointed out, that will affect a bird that likes things damp and wet and cold, basically. So we know why. We all know, I think everybody here will know the statistics. The car crash that has been the curlew population in the UK. We've lost over half of it in the last 20 years, but the losses in some places are literally jaw-dropping. I know in Southern Ireland, down, you can see the southern part of Ireland in the 1980s, 1990s, probably had around 5,000 to 7,000 pairs of breeding curlews. This last year, the count was 105, right? Just let that sink in. 105 breeding pairs left in Southern Ireland. Northern Ireland isn't faring much better. It has the RSPB doing fantastic work looking after them up there, but still down by 90%. Wales, you'll all know the terrible situation in Wales, I'm sure. Statistics are a bit difficult to come by, but the decline is at least 80%. And the BTO, I think you can correct me, James, if I'm wrong, but the prediction is that we could lose them as a breeding bird within 10 to 15 years in Wales. 10 to 15 years in Wales. Southern England, below Birmingham, if you like, that southern bit of England, we only have 500 pairs left. So the mass of the population is in that northern area. And the declines there are still going on. So they like these wet northern uplands. If we lose them from there, we've lost them, basically. And we hold a quarter of the world's breeding population. That's it. Sorry, not being very dexterous with your computer, James, sorry. That's it. Oh no, don't. I've got a Mac, I don't use these. Sorry.
Yeah, just use the arrows.
Oh, the arrows, okay. Excellent. Okay, so that this is BTO figures. That means we've lost, I don't know, 120,000 birds. These stats might be a bit old now. 5,500 birds a year that relates to. And in 2015, the Eurasian curlew became the most pressing conservation priority in the UK for birds. And that's when I got involved, when that came out. So you can see a breeding abundance. If we cannot lose them from the uplands, we cannot. I was asking Mike, if anybody wants to meet a national treasure today, there's one sitting right there, called Mike Smart. Nobody knows more about curlews in the field than Mike. Mike runs or is part of a big project in the south of England, in the Severn and Avon Vales. And we were discussing over breakfast this morning, will we hold on to them in the south of England? Touch and go, I reckon. This is where their heartland is. And the BTO reckons the population of the UK at the moment is about 58,000. But you can see what's happened and where the losses are. A few little bright spots, but I tell you, they're tiny. And we're talking tens of birds. We're not talking hundreds there. So the big losses that we need to keep an eye on. This is where I, though, want to get to the heart of what I want to talk about this morning. That's the breeding abundance. That's where your curlews are. Look at where people are. Just look at the difference between those two. Most people out there haven't got a clue what a curlew is. They haven't even heard of one. Most people, I would say most people that I meet in general public meetings have never heard of curlews. We have a massive information gap between the people where people live and their lived experience in towns and cities, mainly in the south and east, and where wildlife is living that's telling us what's happening. Bear that in mind because to get this message across about the importance of what's happening, we have to tell people in a way that engages not just their minds in an intellectual way, but engages their hearts and souls, because that's what changes the world. You know, pie charts don't change the world, people change the world. And engaging people in this vitally important message that we're hearing about today and the fantastic work done by projects like Echoes. We need this information out there, people listening to it, understanding it, caring about it, making it relevant to their lives. For that reason, I started in 2017 or 18, I think, World Curlew Day. It's coming up, guys. Anybody want to do anything for World Curlew Day on April the 21st? I haven't got long to organise it. But it gives you a hook to sort of think about. How can we tell what's happening? How can we make it relevant? Because this is the crux of it, isn't it? This is the Senegalese environmentalist Baba Diom from 1968. You know, in the end, we will conserve only what we love. We will love only what we understand. And we will understand only what we are taught. Okay? So important to get that message through. We can't just talk to each other. We just can't. It's way, way too important. The Dasgupta review came out. How does biodiversity contribute to global economics? Not just little bits of it, global economics. It was an extraordinary piece of work. And at the end, Professor Dasgupta, I don't know whether my video will work, let's hope it does, said this. Now then, will it work?
It will. It's not.
If I just press it, will it work?
Click the play, it should.
Aha, there's the play. Oh, James, come help.
This is a first for me being asked to provide IT support.
Thank you.
And maybe a last.
It might, no, it might not. It might not. Oh,
Oh, the sound, hang on.
uh-huh.
Yeah, the sound might not work, I guess.
Okay.
1 second.
That sounded, yeah, sounded right. Now it's down to, no? See, you can do it.
The review ends with a plea that our education systems should introduce nature studies from the earliest stages of our lives and revisit them in the years we spend in secondary and tertiary education. The conclusion we should draw from this is unmistakable. If we care about our common future and the common future of our descendants, we should all, in part, be naturalists.
That was at the official launch of the Dasgupta review, and that was Professor Dasgupta. We have to tell people, teach people, inform people, inspire people about the importance of what we're doing. And curlews are such a good way to do that, because once you know them, you love them. It's that call, isn't it? It's that haunting, bubbling, trilling call that sort of splits your heart in two. It's that one. And that's what will draw people in. Richard Louv, I don't know, people have read Last Child in the Woods, but it's excellent. One of the most inspiring people I've ever read, actually. The future will belong to the nature smart, those individuals, families, businesses and political leaders who develop a deeper understanding of the transformative power of the natural world and who balance the virtual with the real. The more high-tech we become, the more nature we need. Right? So these birds like curlews and white-fronted geese and the cuckoos and the golden plovers and everything else that will be mentioned today live in a technical world now. They live in a world where people look at it through screens, not through getting out there and getting their hands dirty. We've got even bigger even bigger challenge on our hands to take the challenges of climate change and the natural world out into the public sphere. Bit of a worry, isn't it? Because 50% of kids can't identify a nettle, 75 between 5 and 15 can't name a robin, 80% don't know what a bumblebee is, and 90% don't know what a cabbage white butterfly. Curlews don't even get on the scale on that one. Okay. Can you see the scale of the challenges that we've got coming up? And you can see how important every single person in here cares passionately about the natural world, but there's not that many of us in here, and there's come on to 8 billion people out there. Okay, so I won't go on about that. I'm not going to spend much time because I want to hear what everybody else has got to say about today. But what I do want to say is that by focusing, by researching, by finding out more about what these creatures need, through projects like Echoes, by holding out the hand of friendship across Europe, and not just across Europe, but across the world. One thing that's really interesting me now is how the curlew species, the global species, are telling us about global issues. The Eurasian curlew is telling us a lot about farming and about climate change. But what about hunting? What about the big range reductions of the long-bill curlew in America? What about the devastation that's happening to the eastern curlew in the great drainage of the wetlands in the Yellow Sea area? These birds are telling us what we need to know about the state of our planet right across the world. And if we don't listen to the birds like the call of the curlew, we won't be able to inspire people in the future. It's this shifting baseline, because once they're gone, they're gone. Once they're gone, they're gone. Every year, my little charity called Curlew Action runs a poetry and an art competition. And we ask people to send us in stuff that inspires them about curlews. And it's amazing what comes in. It's literally amazing. We've had the most beautiful paintings and bits of sculpture, art installations. We've had pieces of music written for us. And this poem, which always incredibly moves me. So this is the only poem I think you'll hear today, sadly. But I might have to ask James again. Oh, hang on, James. I might have got it. Oh, no. Oh. I haven't got your dexterous hands, James. If you'd like to come to be curlew when you made redundant.
No, I haven't done this bit yet.
I do not remember the curlew, only a handful of crumpled feathers, each one a liquid ribbon of mud, set against a faded pink sky, a cartography of longing. I do not remember the curlew, but sometimes, blown in by the tide, I hear a cry that swoops upwards like the outline of grief, the curve of a beak or a bird, more song than substance, soaring again towards the sun.
I do not remember the curlew. Wouldn't that be a sad thing for people to say? So when we look at these issues, when we sit down and we look at the graphs to do with silage production and how they're destroying nests, or we look at all the graphs that James put up, or we look at the plans for forestry, which are now going apace across the uplands of Great Britain. I don't mean rewilding as in natural woodland, I mean the big Sitka plantations, all of which seem to be concentrated on this white in-by ground, which is where most of our waders nesting. 70% maybe, 60% maybe of curlews nest in this moorland fringe area. Then we'll think, how do we take all that statistic, that bigness, and make it work? How do you translate bigness into individual action? And maybe sometimes you need to sit down and write a poem about it, or you need to draw a picture about it, or you need to just go and lie in a field and listen to it and let your emotions work for you. The science is part of it. The human aspect is so much another part of it. So I hope today, when we get all the talks, all I know will be so fascinating, all the science that's being done, let's sort of let it sink in another level as well. Thank you.